And what if this is your last life in this dimension? Not as a tragic ending, but as the sacred closing of a millennia-old cycle. Perhaps you've already felt it, deep in your soul. A strange peace mixed with the sense that everything here has become small. As if what once fascinated you now feels artificial, predictable, lifeless. As if nothing truly holds you here anymore. This is not about giving up or feeling discouraged, but about transcendence. Your soul, upon reaching this point, begins to remember what was never forgotten. Old desires lose their power. External pursuits lose their meaning. You observe the world as someone who has walked it hundreds of times, and now simply contemplates, with the quiet wisdom of one who has understood the lessons. It's not superiority. It's completion. Few recognize when they are reaching this stage, because the signs are not loud, they are subtle. They come in the form of sensations, intuitions, memories that don't belong to this life. Time begins to dissolve. Death no longer frightens. Reality feels less rigid. And most importantly, you begin to feel ready to return. Not to the beginning, but to home. If you feel you no longer belong in the same places, if your vision has changed, if your heart longs for something this world cannot offer, then perhaps you are living your last life on this plane. And if that is true, nothing is more important than recognizing the signs. Because when the soul is about to depart, it begins to whisper. And those who have ears will hear. Before we continue, make sure to follow the channel and turn on notifications. 1. The strange awakening, feeling out of place in the world. From an early age, some people feel out of place in the world. They observe everything around them with a more distant gaze, as if they don't fully belong to what they're experiencing. This feeling doesn't come from sadness, but from a consciousness that is awakening. It's as if the soul knows it has been here many times before, and now senses that it's saying goodbye. The world starts to feel too small. Superficial conversations become exhausting. Social competition loses its meaning, and human systems sound empty. What was once normal now feels strange. There is a silent search for something deeper, even if you can't quite name it. The heart longs for a place the eyes have never seen. Those in this stage feel less desire to compete and more desire to contemplate. There is no longer urgency to prove anything to the world. A different kind of calm emerges, a willingness to simply be. Old cycles lose their importance. There is a natural detachment from external demands. What matters now comes from within, not from outside. The soul, when it nears the end of its cycle here, loses interest in the social game. It begins to remember who it really is. This memory doesn't come with words, but with sensations. A deep silence starts to make more sense than 1,000 explanations. The connection to essence grows stronger, even if it can't be explained. Ordinary routines begin to feel unreal. Days go by, but the soul watches everything with a certain detachment. Things happen, but they no longer strike with the same intensity. There is a gaze that sees beyond, a feeling that this reality is just a passage. There is no fear in this, only a quiet certainty that something greater is near. 2. Fragments of the infinite. Déjà vu and the dissolution of time. As the soul's cycle nears its end, the lines of time begin to blur. Intense déjà vu experiences become common, as if you've already been there. But unlike mere coincidences, it feels like you are accessing memories from other lives all at once. You may react to certain situations with wisdom you don't remember learning. Intuition becomes strong, almost like an inner voice guiding you firmly. This perception comes from something greater. The soul begins to recall experiences that do not belong to this incarnation, but still live within you. Time as we know it begins to lose meaning. Sometimes days fly by, other times they drag. You look at the clock, but feel like something is out of order. This happens because your consciousness is expanding beyond human measurements. The soul stops living only in the now and begins to touch the eternal. Synchronicities increase. Things happen at the exact right moment. You think of someone, and they appear. You desire something, and it manifests. It's not magic. It's alignment with your essence, now finally attuned to the spiritual field. The closer to your last life, the thinner the veil between worlds becomes. The sense that everything is connected intensifies. Words, signs, songs, places. Everything seems to carry messages. It's not illusion, it's perception. You begin to see signs as confirmations, not coincidences. The soul is aligned with something greater, and because of that, everything flows with more clarity and purpose. 3. Accepting death as part of life. When the soul approaches the end of its earthly cycle, the fear of death begins to dissolve. It is no longer seen as a threat or a final loss. Death comes to be understood as a passage, a sacred transition, a silent return to the place from which we came, and to which all will return one day. The attachment to life still exists, but it becomes lighter. The chosen one understands the value of every moment, but knows that nothing truly ends. Life doesn't vanish. It merely changes form. Goodbyes take on new meaning. There is pain, but it is passed through with awareness. Deep down, the heart knows that everything remains alive on another plane. This understanding doesn't come from reason, but from the soul's experience. It's as if something within whispers, everything is as it should be. Death stops causing panic. It is no longer a taboo. It becomes a respected mystery, not a feared one. The unknown starts to feel like reunion, not ending. The chosen one who reaches this stage begins to live life more deeply. They stop fighting time, stop chasing things that won't follow them. They start to value what remains: love, presence, truth. Life becomes a sacred journey, full of purpose and meaning. Faith doesn't become speech, but silent practice. Fear turns into surrender. Hurry gives way to contemplation. Those nearing the end of their earthly cycle realize that what truly mattered was what was lived with the heart. And that clarity brings peace. A peace that doesn't depend on circumstances, but on connection with what is eternal. Even when they lose someone, the chosen one feels pain, but without despair. There's a serene certainty that no one is ever truly lost. The bond between souls doesn't end with physical absence. It continues vibrating in the unseen. And this understanding heals, comforts, and sustains. Because true love doesn't need presence to continue existing. Death, in this context, becomes return. A final embrace that closes the cycle with gratitude. And the chosen one, rather than resist, begins to walk more gently. Each step becomes a prayer, each silence a reminder that the body is temporary, but the essence is eternal. If you feel this inside you, receive it. It is your soul saying it has already understood the meaning of it all. 4. Manifestation and synchronicities. The veil is thinner. As the reincarnation cycle draws to a close, the separation between the spiritual and physical world begins to weaken. The awakened soul realizes that time, matter, and everyday events are no longer disconnected. Everything responds more quickly. The world around you adjusts almost instantly to what you think or feel. It's not just coincidence when you think of someone and seconds later receive a message or call. Nor is it mere chance when you wish for something and it manifests the same day. This kind of synchronicity becomes common in the life of someone aligned with their deepest essence. The universe begins to respond directly. This rapid response happens because the soul is no longer bound to the density of the material world. It has become lighter, more subtle, more connected to the spiritual plane. Reality at this stage doesn't need to be forced. Things flow naturally, as if everything is following an invisible script written by your own consciousness. These manifestations also appear symbolically. Repeated numbers, phrases that appear again and again, unexpected encounters with people who bring answers without knowing it. All of this is spiritual communication. The universe is speaking to you constantly, and you've finally begun to understand the language. This subtle listening becomes a natural habit. The signs don't come to impress, they come to confirm. They confirm that the soul is in transition, that the portals between dimensions are more accessible, that something greater is approaching. This growing sensitivity shouldn't cause fear, but serve as a reminder. You are closer to your origin than you realize. The chosen ones at this level no longer live waiting for miracles. They become the miracle. Everything vibrates in harmony with their inner frequency. Nothing is by chance. Everything has purpose. Manifestation is quick because mind and spirit walk together. When this happens, the veil between worlds becomes nearly non-existent. 5. The peace of completion. When the urgency fades, there comes a moment in the spiritual journey when the soul simply stops running. The desire to achieve, to prove, or to compete disappears. It's not exhaustion, it's liberation. The heart finds a silent peace that was once impossible. Urgency dissolves. What once seemed necessary is now just noise. Desires don't vanish, but their nature changes. The soul no longer seeks approval, fame, or control. The joy is in being, not in conquering. This is one of the subtlest signs of a soul in its final incarnation. It no longer reacts to chaos. It observes, understands, remains in peace. This serenity does not mean stagnation. The chosen ones continue to create, to work, to help, but they do so without attachment to results. They understand that life is not about controlling time, but about surrendering to its flow. Things move more effortlessly because there is no rush to arrive anywhere. The matured soul knows that everything happens at the right time. It respects the cycles, accepts the highs and lows, learns from every stage. Comparison disappears. Guilt loses space. Silence becomes more valuable than others' opinions. This kind of peace can't be bought, only lived. At this stage, many chosen ones discover their role within the collective. They realize their mission is no longer to accumulate, but to share, to help others walk the same path with less pain. This offering isn't forced, it's natural. It's as if the heart says, "I've received enough, now it's time to give." The urgency of the past was the noise of an immature soul. Now there is space, there is time, there is peace. And when that peace arrives, the soul smiles from within. It knows it is ending its cycle with awareness, and that is one of the purest forms of spiritual freedom a person can reach. 6. Seeing through illusion. Reality is energy. With elevated consciousness, the soul begins to see beyond what the physical eyes show. Reality loses its rigidity. The world feels more symbolic, lighter, sometimes almost unreal. This perception isn't imaginary. It's a profound shift in the way energy presents itself to someone who is awakening. The material world begins to appear as a temporary stage. Situations, people, even objects carry hidden meanings. Everything transmits energy. Nothing is merely what it seems. The soul that perceives this starts to live with more presence. knowing everything is in constant communication with their spiritual field. This clarity brings responsibility. You begin to take more care with what you think, feel, and emanate. Reactions are no longer automatic. Everything is observed with awareness. The world is no longer something out there, but an extension of your inner state. Reality shapes itself according to your vibrational level. Chosen ones at this stage often have unusual sensations. They feel the vibration of environments, see beyond words, perceive intentions without anything being said. Sensitivity increases, not as fragility, but as refined perception. This isn't to protect oneself from the world, but to interact with it more purely. Matter comes to be seen as a layer, something temporary, something that dissolves with time. What truly matters is invisible, but present. This is the great turning point of consciousness. To stop seeing the world as the end, and to start perceiving it as a means of learning, healing, and awakening. The soul that sees everything as energy no longer fears change. It understands that everything is transforming all the time. The body changes, life changes, relationships change, but consciousness remains. This simple truth becomes a solid ground upon which the soul walks, and it walks lightly. 7. Dissolution of the self, union with everything. One of the deepest signs of the soul in its final journey is when it no longer identifies as a someone separate from the rest of creation. The ego, which once needed to prove, conquer, and defend, begins to fall silent. The chosen one feels no longer alone. They are part of everything. At this stage, the sense of separation disappears. The soul understands that there are no real boundaries between me and the other. What once caused irritation now brings compassion. What once generated judgment now brings understanding. There is a quiet peace in realizing that everything is connected and that all are expressions of the same source. This is not about abandoning personality, but seeing through it. The chosen one still has preferences and a way of being, but they are no longer attached to it. They know they are not the role they play, nor the body they inhabit. They are consciousness in the form of life, and that consciousness loves unconditionally. This dissolution of the separate self brings relief. Internal conflicts cease. The need to win or prove something loses meaning. Space opens up for surrender, for lightness, for simplicity. Everything that happens is seen as part of the flow, and the heart becomes a channel of divine presence. Empathy becomes natural. Love needs no reason. Forgiveness happens effortlessly. Even past mistakes are seen with tenderness. The chosen one understands that everything has contributed to the soul's growth. They no longer need to protect themselves from anyone, because they see that everything is part of the path back to the whole. 8. The silent mission, serving without needing to be seen. Many chosen ones, as they near the end of the reincarnation cycle, experience a deep shift in relation to purpose. They no longer feel the need to be recognized or applauded. The mission they carry becomes silent, invisible to the world's eyes, but deeply active in the spiritual realm. This sign appears when serving becomes more important than knowing. The soul understands that its presence is already an answer, that its listening heals, that its calm teaches. The chosen ones don't seek stages, they seek peace. They don't want titles, they want truth. And so they become living channels of transformation, even in silence. They find joy in helping without being noticed. They are more interested in planting than in harvesting, more attentive to what they do in the background than what appears before the crowds. That's because they no longer need to prove anything. They know who they are. They know where they came from, and they know why they are here. The silent mission is not a sign of weakness, but of spiritual maturity. Those who have lived many lives have learned that true impact doesn't lie in pretty words, but in the energy that is transmitted. And the chosen ones at this stage carry an elevated frequency, not to impress, but to awaken. This sign also reveals detachment. The chosen one no longer forces connections, doesn't demand answers. They simply walk with integrity and let the universe handle the rest. It's as if they know everything is already being taken care of. Their mission is simply to love, guide, sustain, even if no one sees. This silent offering is sacred. The soul realizes it no longer needs to fight for a place. It has already found its center. And from there it serves. With lightness, with wisdom, with light. 9. The call to return. Nameless longing. There's a kind of longing that has no shape, no address. It isn't for someone, a phase, or a place. It's a longing that rises from the spirit, with no explanation, but that presses deeply. It's the call to return home. And it only manifests when the soul has lived everything it needed to. This longing doesn't hurt like the others. It doesn't bring despair or suffocation. It simply pulses. It arises in moments of silence, in quiet dawns, in tears that fall without reason. It's as if something ancient is being remembered, an invisible home that has always been within, but now begins to feel urgent. The chosen one begins to feel it subtly. First, a disconnection from life's distractions, then a strange peace, even in the midst of chaos. Finally, a quiet certainty. It is almost time to return. But this return is not an end. It's a loving homecoming to the place from which one came. The world no longer holds as it once did. The pursuits lose intensity. The victories lose their shine. What once seemed important now seems small. And the soul understands that the real treasure was never out there. It was always about remembering who you are, not about conquering one more thing. This call also appears in dreams. The chosen one begins to visit places that don't exist on this plane, but feel like home. It's as if the soul is rehearsing its departure, not out of escape, but conclusion. Not out of sorrow, but freedom. Intuition heightens, signs multiply. Time seems to flow differently, and the once restless soul now craves silence. It doesn't want explanations or promises. It just wants to rest, to return to center, to dive into the love that originated all things. But this call is not a cold goodbye. On the contrary, it makes the chosen one live each moment with greater reverence. Every conversation becomes a ritual, every sunrise a gift, every breath a prayer without words. It is life being lived with an awakened heart. The chosen one begins to bless everything: pain, joy, the past, and the present. Everything takes on greater meaning. Even the wounds gain a different glow, because now they are seen with the eyes of someone who no longer needs to fight. Seen with the eyes of someone who is at peace. This nameless longing is the final sign. It is the gentle touch of eternity calling you home. And the chosen one recognizes this call, not with fear, but with gratitude, because they know the cycle is closing, and the soul is finally ready to return to the home it never truly left. The signs are not coincidence, they are confirmation. If you've made it this far and felt something different with each word, know this: it wasn't by chance. The signs we touched on in this content are not fantasies, nor coincidences. They are spiritual reminders, echoes of your own soul, telling you that time is shifting. Not out there, but within you. Maybe you felt this for years. Maybe it's something recent, but the feeling is clear. You are moving away from the old and getting closer to what is essential. And even without understanding everything, you know something deep is happening. It's as if a new truth is awakening, and this truth no longer fits into common explanations. If these signs made sense to you, take a deep breath. There is nothing wrong with what you're feeling. You're not becoming too sensitive, or strange, or disconnected from the world. You are simply connecting with a dimension beyond the physical. You are hearing the voice that lives behind the silence. You may be living your last life on this earth, and that doesn't mean you're better than anyone else. It means your soul has completed stages, walked through many stories, and is now preparing to return home. And when that cycle closes, a new way of living is born. Lighter, more present, more loving. The responsibility of a chosen one is not to shine more than others, but to serve with greater truth. It is to live with humility, to listen more than speak, and to love more than judge. It's to understand that every gesture matters, every thought builds, every choice reveals who you are becoming. Not everyone will understand this process. Many around you will still be focused on goals, competitions, illusions. But that's no reason for pride, nor for isolation. It's simply part of the journey. Every soul has its own time. And your time now is one of awakening. If what you've read here echoed within you, honor that. Value this awareness. Listen more to your heart. Look inward. And even if the world says you're different, know this. That difference is what makes your presence necessary in this moment. You are not alone. There are thousands of other chosen ones feeling the same things, each in their own corner, silently awakening, preparing, remembering, all connected by something invisible, but very real, the call to return. And now, I invite you. Share in the comments what you felt while reading all of this. Which of these signs struck you the most? Do you feel like you're in your last life? Let's talk. Others need to read what you have to say. Your story may be the mirror someone else needs to awaken.